You don't belong in this VIP cabin. You're deliberately delaying this flight, and if you don't move right now, I'll call security.
Sir, you need to get up. Now. The words cut through first class like a blade. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Ice clinked in untouched glasses. A woman in row 3 slowly lowered her newspaper, eyes narrowing. Somewhere near the window, a phone camera lifted, steady, quiet, already recording. Ethan Brooks didn't move. Seat 2A. Leather creaked softly under him as he leaned back, one hand resting on the armrest, the other loosely holding his phone. His breathing was even, controlled, like none of this belonged to him. Melissa Grant stood over him, posture rigid, smile gone. 32, sharp features, hair pulled tight. Her badge caught the cabin light as she crossed her arms. "I said," she repeated, louder now, "you're in the wrong seat." Still nothing. Ethan slowly lifted his eyes, calm, measured, unbothered. "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." A pause, not long, but long enough to make people uncomfortable. Melissa let out a short, humorless laugh. "Sir, I've been doing this for 10 years. I know who belongs in first class." There it was. Not loud, not shouted, but heavy. It landed in the air and stayed there. Across the aisle, a man in a navy suit shifted in his seat, glancing between them. A couple behind him leaned closer, whispering. The woman near the window tightened her grip on her phone. Ethan didn't react, not visibly, but his fingers tapped once against the armrest, a quiet rhythm, thoughtful, patient. "Boarding pass," Melissa demanded, holding out her hand. He reached into his jacket, slowly, deliberate, no sudden movement, just enough to make her tense anyway. The paper slid into her hand. She barely looked at it. Instead, she looked at him, up, down, taking inventory. Then she scoffed. "This isn't right." "It scanned," a softer voice said from behind. A younger attendant, maybe mid-20s, Olivia Chen. She hovered near the galley, uncertain, eyes flicking between Melissa and Ethan. "I saw it turn green." Melissa didn't turn around. Then the system made a mistake. Ethan exhaled, almost a laugh. Almost. "No," he said quietly. "It didn't." That calm, it made something tighten in Melissa's chest. She stepped closer. "Sir, you're holding up this entire flight." Behind her, more phones appeared, subtle at first, then not subtle at all. Someone whispered, "This is going to go viral." Ethan's phone buzzed in his hand. He glanced down. A single message. "Ready when you are." He locked the screen, looked back up, right at Melissa. "I know." The way he said it, soft, certain, sent a chill through her spine. Footsteps approached, heavy, measured. Captain Robert Hayes, 56, 20 years in the air, authority in every step. The gold stripes on his sleeve caught the light as he moved into the aisle. "What's going on here?" he asked, voice low but carrying. Melissa didn't hesitate. "This passenger refuses to cooperate. He won't provide proper identification and he's—" She hesitated, searching for the word, "being difficult." Robert's eyes shifted to Ethan. He took in the details, the tailored jacket, the watch, the stillness. Not what he expected. "Sir," Robert said, measured, "can you confirm your seat assignment?" Ethan met his gaze, held it, then nodded once. 2A. Simple, clean, unshaken. Melissa leaned in, voice tightening. "Captain, look at him." That was the moment. Not loud, not dramatic, but something in the cabin changed, because everyone heard it, and no one could pretend they didn't understand what she meant. Ethan's expression didn't break, but something behind his eyes shifted, slowly, deliberately, like a door beginning to open, and no one on that plane was ready for what was on the other side.
Captain Robert Hayes didn't answer right away. He just stood there, eyes fixed on Ethan Brooks, weighing something he couldn't quite name. In 20 years of flying, he had learned to read people fast. Nervous hands, avoiding eye contact, raised voices. This man had none of that. Too calm. That was what unsettled him. Melissa shifted beside him, impatient. "Captain, we're already behind schedule." Robert exhaled slowly. The pressure was building. He could feel it, not just from the clock ticking toward departure, but from the eyes. Dozens of them, watching, waiting. "Sir," he said, more formal now, "I'm going to need additional identification." Ethan didn't move immediately. That pause again. Not defiance, not hesitation. Control. Then, slowly, He reached into his jacket. Melissa stiffened, her shoulders tensed, fingers tightening at her sides. Robert noticed it, a flicker of instinct passing through him. He had seen situations turn in seconds. But Ethan only pulled out a wallet. Black leather, worn but expensive, the kind of detail you noticed if you knew what you were looking at. He opened it. Inside, a card. Metal, matte black, heavy. Robert leaned in slightly. American Express Centurion. For a split second, something cracked in his certainty. That card wasn't just rare, it was almost never seen. Not in real life, not like this. Melissa glanced at it, unimpressed, or pretending to be. That doesn't prove anything, she said quickly. Anyone can get one of those through connections. Robert didn't respond. His eyes were still on Ethan. Driver's license, he said, quieter now. Ethan tilted his head, steadying him. You've already seen my boarding pass, he said. You've seen my payment method. What exactly are you trying to verify, Captain? The question landed harder than it should have. Robert felt it. Around them, the cabin had gone still. Even the low hum of conversation had disappeared, replaced by something sharper. Anticipation. A man in row 1 checked his watch, tapping it impatiently against his wrist. A woman across the aisle whispered into her phone, her camera angled just right. Melissa stepped forward again, voice rising. We're trying to verify that you belong here. There it was again, clearer this time. Ethan's gaze shifted to her. Slow, precise. Belong, he repeated. Not a question, not quite. More like he was testing the word. Behind Melissa, Olivia shifted her weight, uneasy. She could feel it now, the line they had crossed, the one you couldn't uncross. Ethan leaned back slightly in his seat, fingers brushing against his watch. Stainless steel, polished, subtle but not cheap. His voice when it came was quiet. Do you ask everyone in first class for this level of proof? Melissa opened her mouth, but nothing came out, because the answer was obvious, and everyone knew it. Robert cleared his throat, trying to regain control. Sir, we're following procedure. Ethan looked at him again. Really looked at him this time. Whose procedure? He asked. The question hung in the air. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Robert felt something cold settle in his chest. He didn't have an answer. Not a real one. Behind them, a notification sound chimed from someone's phone. Then another. The ripple effect spreading. More viewers. More eyes, more pressure. Melissa's voice cracked slightly as she pushed forward, desperate now. Captain, other passengers are getting uncomfortable. Robert glanced around. She wasn't wrong, but not in the way she thought. The discomfort wasn't coming from Ethan. It was coming from them, from what this was becoming. He made a decision, fast, firm, final. Sir, he said, straightening, authority snapping back into place, I'm going to ask you to step off the aircraft so we can resolve this at the date. Silence. Then, no. One word, sharp, clean. It cut through the cabin like glass. Robert blinked. I'm not leaving, Ethan continued, voice steady, unshaken. I paid for this seat. I'm sitting in this seat, and this plane is going to Phoenix with me in it. Melissa's face flushed red. That's it. I'm calling security. She reached for the intercom, fingers trembling now, not with fear, but with something else. Something closer to panic. Ethan didn't stop her, didn't argue. He just glanced down at his watch again. Timing something. Waiting. Like this was all unfolding exactly the way he expected. And that was the part no one else understood yet.
The click of the intercom echoed louder than it should have. Melissa's voice came through, tight, controlled, but fraying at the edges. Ground security to aircraft. Immediate assistance required for passenger removal. Every head turned. No one pretended not to watch anymore. Phones were fully raised now, not hidden, not subtle, screens glowing, recording everything. A teenager in the back whispered, "Oh man, this is happening." Ethan Brooks didn't look at any of them. He was watching Melissa, studying her, like she was the one out of place. Captain Robert Hayes felt the shift in the air, the point of no return. Once security stepped on that plane, this stopped being a customer service issue. It became official, documented, legal, and irreversible. Sir, Robert said again, voice lower now, more measured, I strongly advise you to cooperate. Ethan tilted his head slightly. Advise, he repeated. Another word, another test. Robert felt it again, that quiet pressure, like he was being pulled into something deeper than he understood. Behind them, the cabin door opened. 2 officers stepped in. Daniel Reed first, broad shoulders, early 40s, movements controlled, efficient. Behind him, Lauren Price, older, sharper eyes, scanning everything in seconds. They didn't rush. They didn't need to. Authority moved slower when it knew it had the upper hand. "What's the situation?" Daniel asked, voice calm but firm. Melissa pointed immediately. "That passenger. He's been disrupted for over 20 minutes, refusing to comply with crew instructions." Ethan didn't react, didn't defend himself, didn't even blink. Lauren's eyes moved to him, took him in. The suit, the posture, the stillness. Not what she expected. "Sir," she said, stepping closer, "we're going to need you to come with us." Ethan finally looked at her, direct, unflinching. "I'm in my assigned seat," he said, "with a valid ticket. I'm not going anywhere." Daniel stepped forward just enough to close the distance. His hand hovered near his belt, not aggressive, but ready. "Sir, if you continue to interfere with flight operations, this becomes a federal issue." That word landed hard. Federal. A murmur rippled through the cabin. Someone whispered, "This guy's done." But Ethan didn't move. He leaned forward slightly now, elbows resting on his knees, hands clasped together, engaged. "Officer," he said, calm, almost conversational, "are you familiar with unlawful detention statutes under federal aviation law?" Daniel blinked. That wasn't the response he expected. Lauren's eyes narrowed slightly. That language, that precision, it didn't match the situation. "We're not here for a legal discussion," Daniel replied, firmer now. "We're here to remove you from the aircraft." Ethan nodded slowly, like he had just confirmed something. Behind him, a notification pinged, then another, then a cascade, the sound of something spreading. Olivia near the galley stared at her phone. 40,000, she whispered. "What?" another passenger asked. "Viewers, live." The number hung in the air. 40,000 people watching. Robert felt sweat form at the back of his neck. This wasn't contained anymore. This was public. Daniel took another step. "Last warning, sir." Ethan exhaled slowly. Then, almost gently, he asked, "Captain Hayes, how long have you been flying?" The question cut sideways. Robert frowned. 20 years, that's not relevant." Ethan nodded. 20 years, he repeated softly. "That's a long time to make decisions." Robert didn't like where this was going. "Stand up, sir," Daniel ordered, voice sharper now. Ethan didn't move. Instead, he glanced down at his watch again. Timing. Still timing. Then he looked back up, and for the first time, there was something new in his eyes. Not anger, not fear, certainty. "In about 30 seconds, Ethan said quietly, "everything about this situation is going to change." Silence. Daniel scoffed slightly. "Yeah, and how's that?" Ethan didn't answer, because at that exact moment, Robert's phone buzzed, sharp, urgent, violent against the silence. He froze, pulled it out. The caller ID lit up. Operations Command, Priority Level 1. Ethan leaned back in his seat, completely at ease now. "You might want to take that," he said. And suddenly, for the first time since this started, Captain Robert Hayes hesitated. Robert Hayes stared at the screen for half a second too long. Operations Command, Priority Level 1. That didn't happen unless something was already out of control. He answered, "Hayes." The voice on the other end came fast, controlled but urgent. "Captain, this is flight operations. We are monitoring your aircraft. You have an active incident trending across multiple platforms. Current live viewership is exceeding 50,000. Robert's grip tightened on the phone. 50,000. In real time. Watching him. "Resolve the situation immediately," the voice continued, quietly. "No escalation, no force unless absolutely necessary. Do you understand?" Robert glanced up, at the cameras, at the faces, at Ethan. "Understood," he said. The line went dead. He lowered the phone slowly. The weight of it hit him all at once. This wasn't just a delay anymore. This was exposure. Behind him, Daniel shifted his stance. "Captain?"
Robert didn't answer right away, because something didn't add up. The calm, the timing, the way Ethan had said it. 30 seconds. Exactly 30 seconds. Robert looked at him again. Really looked this time. And for the first time, doubt wasn't a flicker. It was a presence. "Sir," he said carefully, "is there something you'd like to explain before we proceed?" Ethan didn't smile, didn't move, but his voice softened slightly. "Yes." One word, and somehow it changed the air again. Melissa let out a sharp breath. "Captain, what are we doing? He's stalling." Robert raised a hand, not looking at her. Let him speak. That alone made her chest tighten. Ethan shifted slightly in his seat, adjusting his jacket like a man settling into a meeting he had scheduled. Not a confrontation. A meeting. "You said I was interfering with flight operations," Ethan began, his voice steady, deliberate. "You said this could become a federal issue." Daniel crossed his arms. "It can." Ethan nodded. "And yet," he continued, "this entire interaction has been recorded from at least 12 different angles." He turned his head slightly, just enough to acknowledge the phones, the lenses, the witnesses. "And in those recordings," he added, "your crew member repeatedly questioned whether I belong in this seat." Melissa's face flushed. "That's not what I—" "It is," Ethan cut in, not raising his voice but stopping her completely, word for word. Silence. Lauren glanced at Daniel. Daniel glanced at Robert. No one spoke, because they all knew. Ethan leaned forward now, just slightly, engaged, controlled. "Do you understand how that sounds?" he asked. Robert opened his mouth, closed it again, because now he did, fully, and it was too late. The ripple had already started. Phones were still up, comments still flooding, judgment already forming. Melissa's voice cracked. "He's twisting this. He's trying to make it about something it's not." Ethan turned to her, slow, precise. "No," he said, "I'm making it exactly what it is." That landed harder than anything else so far, because it stripped away the excuse, the cover, the gray area. Daniel stepped forward again, tension returning to his posture. "Sir, regardless of interpretation, you are still refusing a direct order." Ethan nodded. "I am." A beat. Then, "And I'm giving you one opportunity to reconsider yours." That stopped him. Not the words, the tone. There was no bluff in it, no anger, just certainty. Robert felt it again, that cold shift, like the ground had moved under his feet just slightly. "Captain," Lauren said quietly, "we need to make a call." Robert didn't respond, because he had already made one, and it was starting to feel like the wrong one. Ethan reached down, slowly, deliberately, and picked up his briefcase. Daniel tensed instantly. "Sir, don't!" "I'm retrieving something you asked for," Ethan said calmly. "No sudden movements, no threat, just control." The latch clicked open, soft, precise. Every camera tilted forward. Every breath in the cabin seemed to pause. Ethan reached in, and whatever he was about to pull out, everyone felt it. This was the moment. The one everything had been building towards. The one no one could take back once it happened. The leather folder came out first. Dark, structured, clean edges. The kind of thing you didn't carry unless it mattered. Ethan placed it on his lap, unhurried. No one moved. Daniel's hand stayed near his belt, but it didn't go any further. Lauren's eyes locked on the folder. Melissa's breathing had gone shallow, fast, like she was trying to outrun something she couldn't see yet. Ethan opened it. Slow. Deliberate. Paper didn't rustle, it slid. Everything about him was controlled. He reached inside and pulled out a single card. Simple. White. No flash, no logo screaming for attention. Just wait. He held it between two fingers for a moment, as if considering something, then extended it toward Lauren. "Go ahead," he said quietly. Lauren hesitated, just a fraction of a second, but it was there. Then she took it. Her eyes dropped to the card, and everything changed. It didn't happen all at once.
It was subtle at first, a tightening in her jaw, a shift in her stance. Then her eyes widened, not dramatically, not loudly, but enough. Enough for Daniel to notice. "What is it?" he asked. Lauren didn't answer. She just turned the card toward him. Daniel leaned in. "Read it." And his entire posture froze. The authority in his shoulders collapsed inward like something had been pulled out from under him. "No," he said under his breath. Not disbelief, recognition. Behind them, Robert stepped forward. "What does it say?" Lauren swallowed. Her voice, when it came, barely held together. "Ethan Brooks," she said. A pause. Then, "Chairman of the board." The words didn't land. They detonated. Silence hit the cabin like pressure. Heavy, crushing, absolute. Melissa blinked, once, twice. "That's not possible," she whispered. "Board members don't—" "Fly commercial?" Ethan finished, finally leaning back in his seat. Interesting assumption. Robert felt his stomach drop. Not slowly, all at once. Chairman. Not just executive, not just investor. The top. The one name that didn't get questioned. The one voice that decided everything. His phone buzzed again. He didn't even need to look. He already knew. Around them, the energy flipped. Completely. The cameras didn't lower. They sharpened. Focused. Now they weren't watching a removal. They were watching a collapse. Melissa took a step back. Then another. Her hands came up slightly, like she needed something to hold on to, but there was nothing there. That card could be fake," she said, but her voice had lost its edge. It trembled, cracked. Ethan didn't even look at her. Instead, he looked at Robert, held his gaze. "You had concerns about my documentation," he said. "Do you still?" Robert opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Because there was no version of this where he was right anymore. None. Daniel stepped back fully now, not tactical, instinctive, like distance might protect him from what this had become. Daniel handed the card back carefully, not like evidence, like something fragile. Ethan took it without looking down, slipped it back into the folder, closed it. Click. That sound echoed louder than anything else had, because it was final. Melissa's breathing turned uneven. "I didn't know," she said quickly. "No one told us." "That's the point," Ethan said. Not loud, not angry, but it cut deeper than anything before it. "You didn't know." He let that sit, let it expand, fill the cabin. "You made a decision anyway." Robert felt it hit him, harder than anything else so far, because that was the truth. Not the mistake, the decision. Behind them, someone whispered, "Oh my God." Another voice, quieter, "They're done." Phones kept recording because this was the part people didn't forget. Ethan adjusted his cuff slightly. Small movement, precise. Then he looked between all of them. Melissa, Robert, Daniel, Lauren. Each one holding a different version of the same realization. "This," he said calmly, "is exactly why I'm here." And suddenly, this wasn't an incident anymore. It was something much bigger, and everyone on that plane knew it.
Robert Hayes felt the weight of the cabin pressing in on him. Not the passengers, not the delay, the truth. It was everywhere now, in the silence, in the eyes, in the phones still raised, capturing every second he wished he could erase. His radio crackled, sharp, urgent. "Captain Hayes, this is Executive Operations. Stand by for direct instruction." The voice wasn't routine. It carried rank, authority above his own. Robert straightened instinctively. "Go ahead." A different voice came through, older, controlled, used to being obeyed. "Captain Hayes, this is Patricia Cole." The name hit him like a drop in altitude. Senior Vice President of Operations. He had never spoken to her directly, not once in 20 years. "Yes, ma'am," he said quickly. "Take no further action against the passenger in seat 2A. A pause. Then, "Do you understand?" Robert swallowed. "Yes, ma'am." "Good, because that passenger," she continued, each word precise, "is your chairman." The word landed harder the second time. Chairman. Not a title you misunderstood, not a mistake you recovered from easily.
Behind him, Melissa let out a broken sound. Half breath, half sob. Ethan didn't look at the radio, didn't react to the confirmation. He already knew. Robert lowered the radio slowly. His hands didn't feel steady anymore. "Sir," he said, turning back, voice stripped of its earlier authority. We had no way of knowing." Ethan met his eyes, and for the first time there was something in his expression that wasn't just control. It was disappointment. Deep, measured, final. "That's exactly the problem, Captain." The words didn't rise. They settled, heavy, unavoidable. "You didn't know," Ethan continued, "and instead of asking the right questions, you made the wrong assumptions." Melissa shook her head, tears forming now. "I didn't assume anything. I was just doing my job." Ethan turned to her, slow, deliberate. "You said I didn't belong here." Melissa froze, because there was no way to walk that back. Not now, not with everything recorded, not with everyone watching. I didn't mean." "You meant exactly what you said. No anger, no raised voice, just truth. And that made it worse." Daniel shifted awkwardly near the aisle. For the first time since stepping on board, he looked uncertain, not about the situation, about himself. Lauren crossed her arms, but not defensively anymore, thoughtfully, processing. Ethan leaned back slightly, fingers resting lightly on the armrest again. Control returned, complete. "Do you know how many complaints like this we've received this quarter?" he asked. No one answered, because no one knew. 47, Ethan said. The number sat in the air, not large enough to ignore, not small enough to dismiss. 47 incidents where passengers were questioned, removed, or humiliated based on perception, not behavior. Robert felt his chest tighten, because now it wasn't just about this moment. It was about all the moments before it, the ones that hadn't been recorded, the ones no one had challenged. Melissa's voice broke. "This isn't fair." Ethan's eyes moved back to her. "Fair?" he repeated. A beat. Then, "Was it fair when you decided who belongs and who doesn't?" That ended it. Whatever resistance she had left collapsed. Her shoulders dropped. Her gaze fell. Around them, the cabin remained silent. Not passive, witnessing, judging, understanding. Ethan reached for his tablet this time, tapped the screen, turned it outward. A live call. 6 faces appeared. Executives, senior leadership, watching. Not hearing about it later, watching it now, real time. "Ethan," one of them said, voice tight, "we've been monitoring the situation. Are you all right?" "I'm fine," Ethan replied. Then, without breaking eye contact with Melissa, Robert, or the officers, "I think they have some explaining to do." The shift was complete. Not just power, accountability. And there was no hiding from it now. Not on this plane. Not anywhere. The faces on the screen didn't blink. 6 executives. Silent. Watching. Not observers. Judges. The glow from the tablet lit Ethan's face from below. Sharp lines. Steady eyes. He held it just high enough so everyone could see. No one could pretend this wasn't happening. "Captain Hayes," Patricia Cole said, voice calm, controlled, the kind that didn't need to be loud. "I'd like you to explain why our chairman was about to be detained." Robert felt his throat tighten. Every instinct told him to speak. Every word felt wrong. "Ma'am," he started, then stopped. Started again. "We were responding to a report from our crew regarding a disruptive passenger." "Disruptive," another voice echoed from the screen. Male, older. Charles Bennett, CEO. His tone was colder, sharper. "Based on what behavior?" Robert hesitated, because there wasn't any. Not real, not objective. He glanced at Melissa. She shook her head slightly, eyes wide, pleading without words. "Captain," Charles pressed, "be specific." The silence stretched. Uncomfortable, unforgiving. Robert exhaled slowly. He refused to provide additional identification. Ethan's voice cut in, quiet but precise. "I provided a valid boarding pass and a premium payment method." No one argued, because it was true. Patricia leaned slightly forward on the screen. "And that warranted removal?" Robert didn't answer. Because it didn't. Not anymore. Melissa suddenly stepped forward, desperation breaking through. He was being difficult. He wouldn't cooperate. Ms. Grant, Patricia interrupted, her voice still calm, but now edged. What exactly did he do? Melissa froze. Her mind raced, searching, grasping, but there was nothing to hold on to. He made everyone uncomfortable, she said finally. A weak answer. She knew it. Everyone knew it. Ethan tilted his head slightly. Did I raise my voice? He asked. No response. Did I threaten anyone? Silence. Did I leave my seat? Nothing. Each question landed like a weight, one after another, stripping everything down until there was nothing left but the truth. Melissa's lips parted, but no sound came out, because the only thing left was what she had said earlier. Robert felt it hit him again, clear now, undeniable. Captain, Charles said, voice lower now, more dangerous, we have multiple recordings of this interaction. Robert's chest tightened. He knew what was coming. Your crew member stated, and I'm quoting here, Charles continued, people like him don't belong in first class. The words hung in the air, ugly, permanent. Melissa's knees seemed to weaken. She reached for the back of a seat, fingers gripping the leather as if it might hold her up. I didn't mean it like that, she whispered, but even she didn't believe it. Ethan didn't look at her. He didn't need to. The damage was already done. Officer Reed, Patricia's voice shifted, addressing Daniel directly. On what grounds were you preparing to detain this passenger? Daniel straightened instinctively, but the confidence was gone. We were acting on crew report, ma'am. Interference with flight operations. Did you observe any interference yourself? Daniel hesitated. Just long enough. No, ma'am. Lauren glanced at him, then at Ethan, then back at the screen. Everything was unraveling, in real time. Let me be clear, Charles said, his voice cutting through the cabin. What we are looking at is not a security issue. A beat. Then, it is a discrimination issue. The word hit harder than anything before. Discrimination. Not misunderstanding, not protocol, not confusion. Melissa broke. A quiet, shaking sound escaped her, somewhere between a sob and a breath she couldn't control. Robert closed his eyes for a brief second, because that word, that label, didn't just end careers, it followed you. Ethan finally spoke again. This is not about me, he said, but everyone knew it was. And it wasn't at the same time. This is about what happens when assumptions replace judgment, when appearance becomes evidence. He paused. Let it sink in. Let them feel it. Every one of you made a decision today, he said quietly, not based on what I did. His eyes moved across them, one by one, but based on what you thought I was. No one moved. No one spoke, because there was no defense left. Only consequence. And it was just beginning.
Ethan reached into his briefcase again. Not rushed, not dramatic, but every eye tracked the movement like it mattered more than anything else on that plane, because now it did. He pulled out a thin stack of documents, clean, organized, tabs marked with precision. He flipped it open, turned it slightly so the screen and the people around him could see. 47 complaints this quarter, he said, voice steady. Documented, verified, escalated. He tapped the page. Passengers questioned, removed, delayed, based on perception, not behavior. The words didn't need volume. They carried weight on their own. Patricia's voice came through the tablet, quieter now, but sharper. We've seen the reports. Ethan nodded once. But you haven't seen it happen, he said. A pause. Then, until now. The cabin felt smaller, tighter, like the walls had moved in. Melissa stared at the documents, shaking her head slightly as if denial can still exist in a moment like this. This isn't the same. This was just a misunderstanding. Ethan didn't look at her. He turned another page. Case 21, he said. Business traveler, removed from premium cabin, no incident recorded. Settlement, undisclosed. Another page. Case 34, family of 4, delayed at gate, ticket validity questioned, public complaint filed. Another. Case 47. He stopped, let it sit, then looked up. That's today. Silence. Absolute. Robert felt something inside him shift. Not fear, not yet. Recognition. Because this wasn't isolated. It never had been. Ethan closed the folder halfway. Not done. Just enough. I didn't board this flight by accident, he said. That landed. Hard. Melissa's head snapped up. What? Ethan met his eyes. For the first time there was no distance in his gaze, no buffer, just truth. I chose this flight, he continued, this route, this time, without notice. Robert's stomach dropped, because now it made sense. The calm, the timing, everything. This was a test, Ethan said. The word echoed. Test. Not incident, not mistake. Designed. Melissa shook her head, stepping back. No, that's not... You had every opportunity to pass, Ethan cut in. Still calm, still controlled. You saw a valid ticket. You saw a passenger sitting quietly. You saw no threat, no disruption. He paused. Then, and you still chose to escalate. Each word landed like a verdict. Daniel looked down. Lauren crossed her arms tighter, but this time it wasn't defense. It was restraint. Robert felt the full weight of it now. This wasn't just about what happened. It was about what it revealed. Ethan reached for his phone, tapped the screen, turned it outward. A document appeared. Draft press release. He read it without raising his voice. Effective immediately, the company will implement a zero-tolerance policy for discriminatory conduct, mandatory bias training for all personnel, independent third-party audits, immediate disciplinary action for violations. Melissa's breath caught. Robert's pulse quickened. Ethan continued. Initial investment, $10 million. The number hung in the air. Heavy, real, consequential. This goes out in 30 minutes, Ethan said. No one questioned it. No one could, because the decision had already been made, somewhere above them, beyond them, triggered by this moment. Melissa's voice broke. You're going to destroy us over this? Ethan finally looked at her, not cold, not cruel, but unyielding. You're focusing on the wrong thing, he said. A beat. I'm trying to fix what allowed this to happen. That hit deeper than anger ever could. Robert swallowed hard. Sir, he said, voice quieter now, stripped of rank. What happens to us? Ethan studied him, really studied him, as if measuring something beyond the moment. That, he said slowly, depends on what you do next. No threat, no promise, just truth. And somehow, that was more terrifying than anything else he could have said.
The aircraft finally began to move, slow at first, a quiet roll that felt almost disconnected from everything that had just happened. No one reacted. No one cared about departure anymore. All attention stayed locked on seat 2A. Ethan Brooks, still seated, still composed, still in control. Melissa sat down in the empty seat across the aisle without being told. Her hands trembled in her lap, fingers twisting together, knuckles pale. The weight of every word she had spoken now pressed against her chest like something physical. Robert stepped out of the cockpit, not as a captain now, but as a man trying to hold himself together. Sit, Ethan said, not raising his voice. It wasn't a suggestion. Robert obeyed. The moment didn't go unnoticed. Authority had shifted, completely. Ethan leaned forward slightly, elbows resting on his knees, hands clasped. Let's stop pretending this was an isolated moment, he said. His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath it now. Captain Hayes, he continued, how many passengers have you removed from premium cabins in your career? Robert's mouth opened, closed. I don't keep track of that. Ethan nodded. I do. He reached for his tablet again, tapped, turned it outward. A document appeared. Internal audit. Robert's name, highlighted. In the past 2 years, Ethan said, you authorized the removal of 17 passengers from first class. Robert felt the blood drain from his face. Ethan continued. 15 of them were people of color. The words didn't echo.
They settled, heavy, unavoidable. Robert's hands tightened against his knees. I didn't. You didn't notice, Ethan finished. Not accusing, not shouting, just stating. That's the problem. Melissa let out a quiet, broken breath beside them. Ethan turned to her. Ms. Grant, he said, voice steady, how many times have you questioned a passenger's right to be in first class? She shook her head immediately. I don't know. Ethan held her gaze. Exactly. Her shoulders collapsed. Because she understood. It wasn't about the number. It was about the pattern. Ethan leaned back slightly, giving them space, but not relief. This is what institutional bias looks like, he said. Not loud, not obvious, not intentional. He paused. Then, consistent. The word lingered. Sharp. Accurate. Melissa wiped at her face, but the tears kept coming. I'm not racist, she whispered. Ethan didn't respond right away. He let the silence stretch. Let her sit in it. Then, I didn't say you were, he said. That caught her off guard. But what you did, he continued, produced the same outcome. That was worse, because it removed the shield. Intent didn't matter anymore. Only impact. Robert looked down at the tablet again. 17 removals, 15 people of color. The math didn't argue. It didn't need to. My son, he said, suddenly, voice low, strained. He's mixed. The words came out before he could stop them. Ethan's eyes shifted, focused. Robert swallowed. What if someone treated him the way I treated you? The question hung there, raw, unfiltered. Ethan studied him, long enough to make it uncomfortable, long enough to make it real. Then, you already know why this matters, he said quietly. Melissa's breathing steadied slightly. Not calm, but different. Something else had taken its place. Awareness. Ethan reached for his phone again. A new message lit the screen. He glanced at it, then turned the phone outward. A headline draft. Class action potential. Estimated plaintiffs, over 2,000. Projected exposure, hundreds of millions. Melissa's eyes widened. Robert went still. That's what this becomes if nothing changes, Ethan said. No threat, just reality. The aircraft continued its slow taxi. Engines humming, passengers silent, watching, learning, because this wasn't just about one flight anymore. It never had been, and now no one could pretend otherwise. The engines roared louder as the aircraft lifted off the runway. The city below faded into distance, but inside the cabin, nothing moved on. Not yet. Melissa sat frozen, staring at her hands like they didn't belong to her anymore. Robert remained still beside her, shoulders heavy, posture broken in a way no turbulence could cause. Ethan Brooks closed his tablet. Soft. Final. Then he looked at both of them, not as enemies, not as subordinates, as consequences. This doesn't end when we land, he said. No one interrupted. No one dared. It starts. The words carried something deeper now. Not anger. Direction. Melissa swallowed hard. Are we fired? Her voice was small, nothing like before. Ethan held her gaze for a moment, then shook his head slightly. I don't make emotional decisions, he said. A pause. The board will review everything within 90 minutes of landing. That landed harder than any immediate punishment, because it meant waiting, facing it, living in it. Robert nodded slowly, almost to himself. No severance, he said quietly. Ethan didn't confirm, didn't deny. He didn't need to. They already knew. Melissa's breath caught again, but this time she didn't break. Something had shifted. Not fear, not yet. Responsibility. What do you want us to do? She asked. Ethan leaned back in his seat, studying her, measuring. Not her words, her willingness. There's only one path forward, he said, his voice lowered. Not softer, sharper. Full accountability. He let that sit, then continued. Public statement, live interview, no excuses, no justification. You explain exactly what happened,
why it happened, and what you failed to see. Melissa closed her eyes briefly, not in resistance, in acceptance. Robert exhaled slowly. "I'll do it," he said. No hesitation, no defense, just truth. Melissa looked at him, then back at Ethan. Her voice steadied. "I will too." Ethan nodded once. That was all. No praise, no reassurance. Because this wasn't redemption, not yet. "This will follow you," he said. "Every interview, every job application, every room you walk into." They didn't look away, because they understood now. "That's the cost," Ethan added, "of not asking the right questions when it mattered." Silence settled again, but it felt different, not tense, not explosive, resolved. The plane climbed higher. Clouds swallowed the windows. Inside, the moment held. Ethan reached for his laptop and opened it. The glow of the screen reflected in his eyes as his fingers began to move, documenting every word, every decision, every failure. Not for punishment, for change. Behind him, a passenger quietly lowered her phone, not because it was over, but because it had become something else, something bigger than a viral clip, something that stayed. Melissa wiped her face, sat straighter. Robert adjusted his uniform, not out of pride, but readiness, to face what came next. Ethan didn't look up again. He didn't need to. He already knew. This flight would be remembered, not for where it landed, but for what it revealed, and what it forced people to see. Outside, the sky stretched wide and endless. Inside, something had shifted that couldn't be undone, not by time, not by distance, only by change. If this story made you feel something, stay with it. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and drop 3 words in the comments that describe what you just witnessed.